I posted this a little earlier in the other Am I the Idiot, but it was deleted. My fiancé, 46-year-old male, and I, 40-year-old female, have recently started to discuss building our own house. We currently live in my 4-bedroom apartment, and it is too small for us. The plan is for me to sell my apartment and put the profits from that into buying a house big enough to have separate bedrooms for my 2 daughters and his 2 sons and daughter. My fiancé doesn't earn as much as I do, so the majority of the money will come from me, and I don't really have an issue with it, as we do split the cost of everything fairly, and since I earn more, I pay a higher percentage. Now here comes the issue. The house we originally wanted was in our price range, but after inspection, we realized that bringing it up to code was just way too expensive, so we opted to just build our own instead. My fiancé was very keen on that house. He considered it our dream house, and so he was very disappointed when we couldn't get it. Then a few weeks ago, he was going through some paperwork with me, and he found out that I have another savings account I share with my sister. He accused me of hiding it from him, and I reminded him that he was always aware that I put money aside every month. He said he didn't realize how much we had saved. My sister and I have a joint savings account for our brother who is currently in prison. He will be released in a few months. My sister and I agreed to put in 10% to 25% of our salaries into that account, and we have done that for nearly 16 years. The account has grown to a significant amount. Since he found out exactly how much money is in that account, he has been really upset about me not using that money to buy the house. I'm also very frustrated with him for constantly bringing it up, because I don't consider that money to be mine. We had a massive argument on Sunday, and since then, he and his children have been staying at his parents' house. I had a conversation with 2 mutual friends, and since that conversation, I've been thinking that I might be the asshole. Edit 1. We have a fair division of finances. I just significantly earn more than him, and therefore I pay the lion's share. He fully funds his and his children's lives. We have been together for 2 years and only recently got engaged. Our relationship was pretty smooth sailing before all of this, but the fact that we have been fighting over this for more than 3 weeks has made our relationship difficult. We are due to marry this summer, and obviously this entire situation has soured everything. I have been seriously thinking of canceling the wedding. Edit 2. When my brother is released this summer, he will come home to my sister and me. We obviously won't just give him money and say, "Go live your life." Of course, we have made plans to help him reacclimate into society. We also have a financial plan in place to support him in how to use his money. Edit 3. My brother unalived our hurtful father when he was 19 and was sentenced to 30 years. My father abused all 4 of his children. He abused us physically, psychologically, and sexually. My father deserved it, and that is something everyone who knows my father agrees with. My sister and I firmly stand by our brother. For those asking me to give more details, our mother died when we were all very young and the abuse started after her death. My older brother ran away from our hurtful father when he was 16. He just couldn't take it anymore, but he still came back home often and regularly took care of us, buying us groceries, taking us to school, etc. Then our 10-year-old baby brother took his own life because he couldn't take our father's abuse anymore. This really hit my brother hard. In fact, it hit us all hard. It consumed him with guilt for not being able to protect us from our father. He also knew my father would have never stopped if the death of his son didn't even soften him enough to stop hurting us. The months following our baby brother's death were a hard time for us, and our father took great joy in mocking us for grieving our baby brother. In fact, he took great joy in tormenting us. This kind of made my big brother snap, and, well, he did what he did. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot. You're paying the lion's share, selling your home and putting the entire proceeds towards a home with him, and he still wants more? Money that he accused you of hiding from him? Money that he has not been contributing to? Red flag for maybe even longer than you 2 have been together? No idiots here, fam. Pause the wedding and selling your apartment for the time being at the very least, and couples counseling. Your brother saved you and paid the price. Now's your turn to have his back. And if I were your fiancé, I wouldn't first think how I could use your brother's money. I'd be thinking how I could thank him and match what's in the account to the best of my ability. Comment 2. Not the idiot. Technically, your brother is a criminal. In reality, though, he's a hero. You are definitely showing your gratitude to your brother by providing for him. You are a good person. You know who isn't a good person? Your fiancé. He wants your money, not your love. If you still insist on marrying that gold digger, I highly, highly, highly recommend an airtight prenup. I suspect that once he bleeds you dry, he will move on, leaving you homeless. Oh, and those friends who called you an AH? Yeah, they're not friends. Now, for the update, thanks for sticking around for the update. So, the past 2 weeks have been pretty hard on us. After my fiancé stormed out with his kids, I thought we'd have a break to cool off, but no such luck. His sister, who's always had it out for me, decided to stir the pot. She went around telling our friends and family that I was hoarding money and planning to leave my fiancé high and dry. The nerve of her, right? I've been nothing but transparent with him. Then my sister called me, furious because somehow the amount in our joint account got leaked. My fiancé had been talking, and now my brother's business was out in the open. I was livid. That money was sacred to us, meant for a fresh start for our brother, not for gossip. But wait, it gets worse. My fiancé, in a move that shocked everyone, proposed using the money to invest in a business venture with his friend. He said it would make enough profit to build the house and support my brother. I couldn't believe he'd even suggest it. That money wasn't his to gamble with. I shut that down immediately, but the damage was done. Trust was broken. I felt walked all over, my boundaries ignored. It was like he saw me as a bank rather than a partner. In the midst of this mess, my brother got an early release. Surprise, surprise. We had to scramble to get everything ready. My sister and I welcomed him home, but the tension was thick. My fiancé didn't even show up, which was probably for the best. Now my brother's trying to adjust, and I'm trying to keep the peace. But it's hard when I'm constantly being questioned about my loyalty and my finances. It's like I'm on trial here, and just when I thought things couldn't get any more complicated, my fiancé's ex-wife decided to weigh in. She accused me of trying to replace her and said I was unfit to be around her kids. She threatened legal action to limit his visitation rights if they continued to live with me. This was a punch to the gut. I've been nothing but kind to those kids, and now I'm being painted as the villain? It's all too much. So, I made a call. I told my fiancé we needed to postpone the wedding. I needed space to think, to breathe. He didn't take it well, said I was abandoning him when he needed me most. But I had to stand up for myself. I couldn't let this go on. Now, I'm here, trying to support my brother and mend my own heart. It's not easy, but I'm getting through it one day at a time. Thanks for reading. My wife wants an open marriage, but ends up pregnant with her coworker's baby. So after 6 years of marriage, I file for divorce and take full custody of our kids to show her actions have consequences. To start, I, 33-year-old male, have been with my wife, 29-year-old female, for almost 6 years. I have a good job, don't drink or party, am home every single night after work, and don't go out on weekends. I cook dinners, help with the kids, and do absolutely anything I can to help make her life easier and make her happy. I should also include that I absolutely hate arguing and am extremely passive. She was married once before and has younger children from her previous marriage. When we first met, she would constantly talk about how mean and terrible her ex was in every way, and how she was so incredibly happy to have met someone like me. While she has a lot of insecurities from past trauma, I've made an effort to spend our entire relationship building up her confidence and self-esteem. I constantly tell her how beautiful and great she is, even if she treated me poorly in the moment. Fast forward about 2 years into our relationship, and now she is feeling much more confident and incredibly beautiful. With that, she has spent the last 3 years on ups and downs of being incredibly nice to me, then treating me poorly and telling me that I need to change X, Y, and Z in order to meet her needs. She asked me to go to therapy, which I am completely on board with and support. I went to therapy for a bit, but couldn't afford to keep going due to costs. I make an extremely strong effort to learn how to talk and handle situations, but it is never good enough for her, and she constantly says that I will never meet her needs as a partner. I am incredibly confused by this because in the beginning, she was the one pushing for me to marry her, against my previous thoughts on marriage. Her love feels conditional, and I feel as though I am constantly walking on eggshells trying to make her happy, even though I don't feel she ever will be. A few weeks ago, we got into a pretty heated argument, and she discussed wanting to open our marriage so her needs could be met since I can't do that for her. I explained to her that I wasn't into this or continuing our relationship, and she would have to explore on her own. She responded by telling me that I was being controlling, something I am completely against and have never done in any aspect, for not giving her the option to do this within our marriage since she doesn't know what she wants. With that being said, I felt as though I am being supportive in doing what I can to help her be happy in life, with or without me. I don't know how normal it is for a partner to start daily arguments or be unhappy with their partner in the way she feels with me. Am I the odd one out, and am I the jerk for not wanting to be a part of this, especially after all of the hurtful things she has said over the years? Feel free to ask me anything, and I am more than happy to elaborate. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Her love feels conditional, and I feel as though I am constantly walking on eggshells trying to make her happy, even though I don't feel she ever will be. This is the crux of the problem. This is a personality trait of hers. It doesn't get better, it won't change no matter how much therapy you two go through. Imagine what years of feeling this way is going to do to you. I was in a similar situation for 20 years before I finally understood it was never going to change. I wish I had let myself acknowledge this fact sooner, because these are years of your life you don't get back. Not the idiot. Comment 2. It isn't being controlling to say no adultery within marriage. When she pushed you to marry her, she pushed for a relationship which the state and society defines as strictly monogamous. She wants out. Permit her the exit she needs. There is no need to discuss it with her. Now, for the update. Thanks for sticking around for more of my life's chaos. So after the whole open marriage blow-up, things got quiet for a bit. Too quiet. You know, like the calm before the storm. I kept doing my thing, working, cooking, and trying to keep the peace at home. But I could tell something was off with her. She was distant, and her phone was glued to her hand more than ever. Then, out of nowhere, she hits me with the news that she's pregnant. I was floored. We hadn't been trying, and with the state of our marriage, it was the last thing I expected. But here's the kicker. She wasn't sure if the baby was mine. That hit me like a ton of bricks. All this time, I thought we were trying to work things out, and she was seeing someone else. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and just plain angry. I wanted to scream, to ask why she would do this to us, to our family. But I didn't. I just listened as she explained how it happened, how she felt neglected and found comfort in someone else's arms. It was a guy from her work, someone I'd met at company parties. I couldn't believe it. The guy who'd shake my hand and smile was the same guy sneaking around with my wife. The days that followed were a blur. I moved into the guest room and we barely spoke. The kids could sense the tension, and it ended the life of me to see them so confused and worried. I was torn between wanting to fix things for their sake and feeling like I couldn't look at her without seeing the betrayal. Then came the day of the ultrasound. She wanted me to go with her, said it was important that we face this together. I agreed, more out of obligation than anything else. We sat in that cold, sterile room, and when the image of the baby appeared on the screen, something inside me just broke. That was supposed to be our moment, our baby. But it wasn't. It was a constant reminder of her affair. I started to pull away after that. I threw myself into work, stayed late, and avoided going home. I couldn't stand the sight of her growing belly, the symbol of her infidelity. But then, she started having complications with the pregnancy. She was put on bed rest, and despite everything, I couldn't just leave her to fend for herself. So I took care of her, took her to her appointments, and made sure she had everything she needed. One evening, as I was making dinner, she called me into the bedroom. She was crying, saying she was sorry for everything, that she never meant to hurt me. She told me she'd ended things with the other guy and wanted to make our marriage work. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to believe her, to forgive her, but the other part was just too wounded. We started going to couples therapy, trying to untangle the mess we were in. It was hard, opening up about all the hurt and resentment. But we were making progress, or so I thought. Then came the day that changed everything. I came home early from work to find her ex-husband's car in the driveway. My heart sank. I walked in to find them arguing in the living room. He was furious, accusing her of cheating on him too back when they were married. Turns out the guy from her work wasn't the first. She'd been lying to me from the start, painting her ex as the bad guy when she was the one with a history of infidelity. I couldn't take it anymore. I packed a bag and left. I needed space to think, to breathe. I stayed with a friend for a few days, trying to figure out what to do next. In the end, I decided I couldn't be with someone who had deceived me so deeply. I filed for divorce. It's been a week since I moved out for good. The kids are staying with me for now, and we're all trying to adjust to this new normal. It's not easy, but I'm doing my best to be there for them, to show them that even when life gets turned upside down, we can get through it together. Thanks for reading. It's been a rough ride, but I'm hanging in there. My dad ignored my health issues for years, but now he's in the hospital and I'm his only heir, so I showed up just to tell him I'm donating his fortune to charity. My dad, 51-year-old male, and I, 24-year-old female, have been no contact for the last 4 years after I decided to move in permanently with my mom at 18. As some background information, I was diagnosed with multiple medical conditions at a young age. I'm not going to disclose the type of conditions, but they all required regular specialist appointments and daily medication. My dad was always under the belief that I was faking or overthinking my conditions, and would complain if I had a medical appointment during his week, and would request that I leave all appointments for when I was with my mom so he didn't have to drive me as I medically wasn't able to drive. Of course, this wasn't always possible as specialist appointments are very difficult to book and you take what is offered. There were many times where he would refuse to drive me and I would have to quickly call a friend to take me. He would also complain if I had to fill my prescription during his week, as he believed I was being overdramatic. The main issue that he had was that he was spending too much money on me. After I got a casual job in retail at 16, he demanded that I pay for all appointments and medication, as it wasn't his responsibility anymore. He also demanded that I pay him $100 for groceries when I stayed over, which I admittedly did hand over because I hated conflict, and he would yell if I refused. I want to point out that money wasn't an issue for him. He can easily afford it, but didn't think I was worth it. My dad was also verbally and emotionally hurtful. He was physically hurtful with my siblings and me when we were young, but that thankfully declined after a while. He would repeatedly tell me I had an eating disorder in front of his friends as I was too skinny. My medication had side effects such as being unable to gain weight and low energy. He would take my medication away from me to prove that there was nothing wrong with me, and would only give it back when my siblings would tell our grandparents. When I finally had enough and moved in with my mom full-time, I wasn't able to take much with me as he decided he owned everything, including my medication and school books. I now have panic attacks when he is mentioned, and I avoid places I know he visits such as my grandparents' house. There are plenty more instances where he was horrible, but that should cover it. On to the current issue, I am now working, and my dad contacted me politely asking me to pay him back for the multiple specialist appointments and medication he paid for. He had sent me a photo of a graph showing the amount he wants. I said no, and that he was my parent and was required to take care of me. I told him not to contact me unless he wants to apologize to me. He replied saying that he only paid for it as it was required by the government, but now that I am working full-time, I have to pay him back. I am now doubting whether I am in the right and would like some advice. Am I the jerk? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot. Do you know what my kids owe me? Nothing. Because they're my kids. I made them. I'm responsible for them. And that was my choice and obligation. Go no contact with this person and have a better life. You probably won't get a restraining order, unfortunately, but just block him on everything and keep your socials locked down. Comment 2. How on earth could you be considered the AH here? You aren't required to repay him for basic parenting. If in doubt, give him your lawyer's details and tell him any communication goes through them. Now, for the update. Thanks for sticking around. Here's what's been going down. So, the other day, I get this message from my dad out of nowhere. He's saying he's sick, like really sick, and he's all alone. He's laying it on thick, talking about how he's always loved me and misses me. I didn't buy it, not for a second. But then he drops this bomb. He's got no one to take him to his treatments. My heart sank. I mean, he's still my dad, right? I talked to my mom about it, and she was like, Don't you dare feel sorry for him after everything he's done. But there was this nagging voice in my head, telling me maybe I should help. So I made the call. I told him I'd take him to his next appointment. Big mistake. I show up at his place and it's like walking into a lion's den. He's got this smug look on his face, like he's won some kind of prize. The car ride was tense. He tried to make small talk, but I wasn't having it. We get to the clinic and I'm waiting in the lobby, feeling like a fool. Then I overhear these nurses talking about a patient who's been faking symptoms to get attention. My blood ran cold. It was him. He wasn't sick at all. I confronted him about it and he just laughed. Said he knew I'd come running if he played the sick card. I was furious. I left him there and told him to find his own way home. I thought that was the end of it, but nope, it was just the beginning. The next day, my grandparents call me crying, saying my dad's been in an accident. He was driving home from the clinic and got hit by a truck. He's in the hospital, critical condition. I felt like the world was spinning. Was this my fault? If I hadn't left him there, would he be okay? I went to the hospital and it was bad. Machines everywhere, beeping and whirring. I sat by his bed watching this man who made my life hell, now helpless. I didn't know what to feel. Hate, pity, forgiveness. It was all too much. Then in the middle of this mess, my aunt shows up. She's all tears and drama, saying my dad's will leaves everything to me. His house, his money, everything. I couldn't believe it. Why would he do that? We hadn't spoken in years. It didn't make sense, but here's the kicker. My siblings are furious. They think I manipulated him into changing his will. They're saying I'm just like him, that I'm greedy and selfish. It's tearing the family apart. I tried to tell them I didn't want any of it, but they don't believe me. It's a mess. And now I'm sitting here, wondering if I made the right choice. Should I have just ignored his message? Should I give up the inheritance to keep the peace? I don't know what to do. It's like every decision I make is the wrong one. Thanks for hearing me out. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.